Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome to yet another God of War video. I thought that today we could talk a little bit more about the future of the series and where we could go next. For those of you who don't know, Ragnarok is basically being packaged as the climax of the Norse series of games. It leaves us with the question of, what Pantheon do we tackle next? We have seen that it is a much larger world than we could ever have anticipated from Tyr's murals, so it begs forth many questions that I would love to see be answered. So we will be touching on that here, but before we do, if possible guys, before we start, it would mean the world to me if we could get this video to 500 likes. It helps support the channel out a ton, and also gives this video that extra push right out of the gate. Also, if you like what we do here and wish to see more, please do not forget to subscribe and tick that bell, as it will keep you up to date with all of the new content coming your way. But before we do, we actually have a sponsor for today's video. Hey you! Yeah, you. Are you bored of waiting for the next NRS game? Tired of killing Valkyries in God of War? Well, there's a gem hiding in your pocket, waiting for you to shine it. Raid Shadow Legends. With us all settling into the holiday season, Raid is bringing us all its fiercest boss to date. The Hydra, a creature so horrifically strong, it outshines every enemy before it. This thing is the ultimate beast. A superpowered clan boss that, like many bosses, is an enemy type that has been rolled into one. Its multiple different heads, with each having its own unique mechanics, make it a formidable beast to go up against. It requires a tactical mind to structure your team and battle this monstrous animal. Not only can it share the pain and push your team to its breaking point, but it can also scare your champions, rot them from the inside, cloak itself in a cloud of poison, and a ton more crazy things. Yeah, it really lives up to its title as a boss, but that's not to say it's impossible. Much like Hercules and Kratos, if you can cut off its head and expose its weak point, then it's go time. Deal as much damage as you can before it can regenerate. This whole battle is a masterclass in tactical decision making and team structure. Every fight against the Hydra is a challenge, and it will not go down so easily. But once it does, it's absolutely worth the payoff, as you will be rewarded with the best artifacts around. As someone who travels around a lot for tournaments, such as Celtic Throwdown and CEO, Raid has honestly been such a handy tool to help pass the time as I'm traveling from country to country. Being available on iOS and mobile devices, you can play anytime, anywhere. But what else is going on with Raid? Well, if the Hydra wasn't enough, then I'm pleased to let you know that for a super limited time, Raid is giving every player a free limited champion, Simple. Some of you might actually recognize him already, as he is an esports legend and Na'vi superstar. He's available free now, up until the 28th of January 2022. And hey, if you're an older new player, then he is up for grabs. All you have to do is log in for 7 days between now and the 28th, and he's all yours. Remember, this is only for a limited time, so if you miss out now, he is gone. But things don't stop right there, as there is a full schedule of fun and festive activities, including tournaments and a new fusion event that will allow you to add festive champions to your collection. Honestly, there hasn't been a better time to get into Raid. So to join, please click on the link down in the description below, or scan my QR code. Once you do, you'll get a free epic champion, Tyrell, 200k silver, 1 energy refill, 1 XP boost, and finally an ancient shard, so you can summon an additional champion once you jump into the fray. And you can find all of these goodies right over here. But without any further ado, let's get back to today's video. Now, the first pantheon I wanted to touch on was the Egyptian gods. For those of you who don't know, during the very early development of the 2018 game, it was originally going to be set in Egypt, with Kratos tackling the gods of that pantheon with a child by his side. Of course, this was yet to be Atreus. This draft was in extremely early development, and it never really came to fruition off the cutting room floor. So at most, it was an idea with very early bits of concept art and a little bit of a teaser to its creation. If you are interested in this and wish to explore it, I highly recommend checking out God of War Making Kratos, as it touches on a lot of the early drafts of the 2018 installment. Now, did you know that Kratos has indeed traveled to the lands of pharaohs and has even met one of its gods? Yep, that totally happened in the 2021 spin-off comic God of War Fallen God. This very brief 4-part comic book series serves as a bit of filler in between the events of God of War 3 to 4, with what exactly happened to Kratos. Now, whilst it doesn't really deliver with us seeing his full journey from Greece to Midgard, it does take us on a trip to the land of Egypt, where he attempts to run away from his past. But it's here where he encounters Thoth, the god of wisdom, writing, hieroglyphics, science, magic, art, judgment, and the dead. Jesus, that's a lot of things to be in charge of. Here, Thoth tells us that his future does not yet lie in this land, and that his future, in fact, belongs elsewhere. Thus, after this conversation, Kratos somewhat gains a new perspective on what to do with his life after this point. So, he would leave Egypt and set forth to Midgard. So, whilst incredibly brief, Kratos has indeed not only traveled to other lands, but has met another pantheon before the events of God of War 4. With this said, I can imagine that the Santa Monica team has a ton of ideas and assets that are sitting on the cutting room floor before they turned their sights to Norse mythology. What also super helps, and could be a bit of a tease, is that during Kratos' and Atreus' search for the Black Rune, it would take them to Tyr's vault. Here, there are a number of treasures from many faraway lands, and this also includes the like of a sheet, a crown worn by kings and gods. When Atreus asks what this is, Mimir is able to bear his vast knowledge and quickly elaborates on where it comes from and how the world of Egypt is filled with many gods. So to me, it's very clear that the foundation is here to touch on. It's all a matter of how they do it and why, as this would actively force them to leave their home post Ragnarok and leave after Asgard's destruction, so the cycle of the apocalypse would continue to spin with them no longer being there. Honestly, I don't really know how this works into the grander scheme of things, but it should be needless to say at this point that Egypt is probably the strongest contender for where the series will go forth next. My big question here is, how exactly do you fit these two into the land of pharaohs? One can only wait and see, but I'm extremely excited to see where this series does go. Our next option is one I'm interested in seeing, as narratively, I think it does a lot for the relationship of Kratos and Atreus, and that is the possibility of them returning to Greece. Now, obviously, at the end of God of War 3, Kratos did a pretty damn absolutely amazing job of fucking it all up. He killed nearly every god that wronged him, redeemed himself of his sins, and finally released hope into the world to thwart Athena's plans, undoing the damage that he had done. This ending can be seen as somewhat bittersweet, as by the end of it, Kratos did disappear for a very long time. So, Athena was left to go and oversee Greece without the power of hope she wished to reacquire. But it does raise a huge question: what exactly has happened to the world of Greece since Kratos has left? As whilst it isn't entirely clear in 4, we do see Athena again, implying that Kratos is either haunted by her, or she is keeping a very close eye on him. Athena seems to be the only remaining echo of Kratos' past that is yet to fade, so we may finally see that be snuffed out. My question here though is, will we actually see this happen? Kratos' past will always be a big part of his character moving forward. Regardless of where he travels to, his hands are soaked in blood. But because of that, there's a lot of foundation to work with here, and with a century or so having passed, and the realms operating on different times, a lot could have happened after the events of God of War 3, including how the surviving mortals of Greece have chronicled Kratos' battles against the gods, something we do see in Tyr's vault as it is inked on a vase. Whilst, yes, Kratos has killed a lot of gods, let's not pretend that the Greek gods didn't get around. There are a ton of gods and demigods and even beasts that Kratos has not encountered. This includes the likes of Achilles, Artemis, Orion, and well, the list does go on. Not every single god is dead, so the possibility of him returning is always up in the air. My big question here is, what reason would they have to return? And if so, how present would Athena be in it? It's very clear that she's suffering from the same poisoning that Zeus did from the madness of the Titans. So, is it possible that she could be trying to spread this once again? Will these new gods falter to it? There are so many little questions and ideas to toy with that make this concept so incredibly intriguing. Either way, it would be an interesting callback for sure for the series. And I think narratively, it would allow things to come full circle for Atreus and Kratos. The Norse series of games allows us to explore Atreus as he gets to know who Loki is. But whilst that is the case here, Atreus doesn't fully know everything about Kratos. It would make for an interesting coin flip to have Atreus truly learn just who his father is. Or, in this case, was. Now, our next Pantheon I would really like to see is the world of the Celts be explored. Celtic mythology is unfortunately something I'm not too accustomed to, so it is a bit out of my wheelhouse. But do you know who does have a wealth of knowledge about it? Mimir. Whilst Mimir is branded as an Aesir god, he doesn't actually originate from the world of the Norse gods. He originates from the British Isles, more specifically, Scotland. But the UK is a very tight-knit country, with many forms of its fictional deities lying in the realm of magic. So because of this, it doesn't necessarily have to confine itself to the world of the Celts. We could explore the idea of a tyrannical order of Camelot, with an evil King Arthur leading the charge, or possibly the downfall of Dagda, the leader of the Celtic gods. There are tons of gods and bits of source material to reinterpret if we were to enter this world. And with Mimir by our side, we already have a bit of a guide into this world. Unfortunately, whilst I don't know much about the Celts, God of War could actually serve as a vessel and catalyst to be a somewhat modern introduction to that pantheon and culture. It's something that allows many of us to learn of different mythologies and worlds beyond what we know, and this is something the series has done very well to date. Whilst yes, the games have most certainly never been accurate to its source material, it does serve as a way to introduce you to a new world that you may not know or understand. So something like this could help shine the lights on the Celts. Now, our next region I would absolutely love to see is the world and gods of Japan be explored. I absolutely love Japanese culture in general. It's so beautifully distinct and different to that of Western society, even in the modern day. But even Japan's culture from its past is so different. Their interpretations of demons, gods, and monsters are rooted in faith, power, and honor. Hell, a good example of this is just how different dragons are seen. In Western Europe, dragons are typically portrayed as monstrous villainous beasts that sit on a mountain of gold. In Eastern Asia, dragons are seen as divine spirits and ones that uphold the world of mortals against those that wish to do it harm. It's different interpretations here that spark a lot of intrigue about the world, and with games like Ghost of Tsushima, and Sekiro bringing a lot of success to the West, there's definitely an audience for this sort of game. In terms of gods and enemy types, we have plenty to work with gods like Amaterasu, the god of the sun, Tsukuyomi, the god of the night, and Susanoo, the god of the sea. The list is vast and diverse to say the least. But what about the monstrous side of things? Well, Japan is absolutely no stranger when it comes to folklore monsters and horror. Whether that be a warlord who was greedy in life, only to be betrayed in his end and become an oni, or a woman wronged in death by the betrayal of a lover to become a yokai. There are so many beautiful, rich ideas at our fingertips that haven't really been touched on in the medium. If we really want to go wild, we can incorporate shinigamis, or as known in the West, death gods. So like I said, there is a world of interesting source material to work with, and I cannot wait to see how this is acted on going forward, because it definitely does feel like there could be something special here. The question is right now for me, how do we take them from Europe to the eastern region of Asia? Well, honestly, I don't know. It's very hard to say what would take them there. But hey, if Kratos can travel from one world of gods to another, the idea of something like this will always remain a possibility. But for now, this has been it for where will Kratos go next. Now, I will say, please do not feel discouraged if I didn't mention a Pantheon or world that you yourself are interested in. I'm simply working off what I would like to see, as well as some of the ideas that have been planted in game. I love what Santa Monica is doing right now. They've done an incredible job of handling the world of Olympian and Norse gods. I can't wait to see where the team goes next. I just love what they do, and I think this is a fun idea to kind of toy with in the grand scheme of things. So with that said, what Pantheon would you personally like to see next? But for now, as always, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting as Ragnarok comes for us all. Take care everyone, stay safe.